Hi, I'm Dan Barker.
I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
Brent Michael Davids is an internationally acclaimed, multi-award-winning composer. He composes orchestral music, he does film scores, he's also an enrolled member of the Mohican tribe of American Indians. He has bachelor's and master's degree in music composition. He's been featured on ABC, on NBC, CBS, NPR, PBS, and MAPT. And Brent Michael Davids is an atheist. So welcome to Free Thought Matters.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
We want to know more about your background as a Mohican Indian. First,
do you see the turtle necklace he's wearing there? The Turtle Clan?
Turtle Clan.
And I'm also in the Turtle Clan of my tribe, and so you're sitting between two hard-headed guys here. So you were raised, you were born in Madison, Wisconsin.
I have an interesting background actually. I was born in Madison, Wisconsin, but I'm, on my dad's side, I'm Mohican. And he was going to school at the University in Engineering, and I was born in Madison because of that, but raised on the reservation after that. And then also, my mom's side, she is related to Edward Doty, who came over on the Mayflower, direct descendant. And the Mayflower landed in a place where, of course, the Lenape and the Mohicans and the Wampangers and Wampanoags all were there. So my mom's ancestors met my dad's ancestors, probably.
Kind of the same with Dan and me, because I have a direct ancestor from the Mayflower, George Soule, but he wasn't a pilgrim. I'm kind of proud of that. He was a tutor. So,
mine was a servant.
So
Edward.
Great. So we didn't have the pilgrims directly in our background.
So we can't blame your ancestors for the mess this country's in.
No, and I have a little battle going on internally.
Well, don't we all? We're all multi-something in our backgrounds.
But James Doty, who was like the founder of Madison,
Madison,
he was a real estate guy, a lawyer, a judge. He's also my I'm a direct descendant of him as well, from Madison.
Many things in Madison are named for Doty.
James Doty stepped off the bench, and he helped to negotiate a land deal between the Menominee and our tribe. We didn't have a reservation. So he brokered that deal with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and got us a reservation.
So when you're talking about the Mohican Reservation?
Yeah, the Mohican Reservation.
So when you grew up in the reservation, you're talking about in Wisconsin?
In Wisconsin, right. We're just on the southwest corner of what used to be the Menominee Reservation.
And you still live there now, right?
I live there now, yeah.
Wow.
Right in the forest.
Great story. Well, what a story. You know, you live in this kind of remote place that's very peaceful and quiet, and yet you travel the world with your music. You've written so many orchestral works and choral. You wrote for that Chanticleer group, that male chorus. You wrote, what, 4 or 5 songs for them?
Right.
And you wrote for Garrison Keillor. He asked for a song for, it was on Prairie Home Companion.
Right.
And what other things have you done? You toured Russia, and you got awards as a, what is that, Russian-American?
It was some kind of presidential thing. Like they had some presidential tour, Obama thing, and they asked me to go do on a tour. So I spoke about American Indians to the Russian people and performed. So I brought my instruments around and performed and toured all over the place. And I met some Indians in Russia from the Siberia area, where we were in the middle, sort of the north middle part of the country.
So full circle.
Yeah, and they reminded me of like Navajos, really. They looked the same, they dressed similarly, and they gave me a couple little instruments, a little bull roar. It's a little piece of wood you spin in the air and it buzzes, like
wow, okay.
And then a little rattle that was coated in fish skin.
Now, and when you grew up on the reservation, how did you get into music? From the beginning, or?
Well, no, I left the reservation when I was like 2. My dad finished his electrical engineering degree. We moved off the reservation to Chicago, and then he got a job with Bell Telephone Electronics, and I grew up in Chicago school district. The high school I went to was 4,000 students, so we had 11 valedictorians and 1,000 people in my graduating class, and so they had all sorts of electives, and I was in music. I was playing band. My mother kind of forced all the kids. I have 2 sisters, and she forced us to take piano lessons, but I didn't like it, actually. I wasn't good at it, so I quit right away. and I haven't really played since. But it taught me to read music, which is
I'll
really
teach
valuable.
you piano if you'll teach me that flute, because you play
Sure.
the flute just gorgeous.
I need, I don't know. I really can't play any piano at all. It's bad.
Well, it's all in the fingers. That's the secret there. But you were raised Mormon, right? Or some kind of a Mormon?
It's an offshoot of, the Mormons. The Mormon history is they came through, Joseph Smith founded it in, the antebellum period in New York. It was about 10 years after the Seventh-day Adventists started, right? The Millerites started about, I don't remember.
1830 something?
Yeah. And then 10 years later, whatever, the Mormons started. But they moved around and they got chased out of everywhere, and they were in Illinois. And then and Joseph Smith was killed in 1835, I think.
Somewhere around there.
And then the church had a schism, like a diaspora. So Brigham Young stepped in, took it everywhere. But there's this idea that the son of Joseph Smith, Joseph Smith Jr., was only like 10 or 11 years old. So they waited until he grew up and then started another church, and they called it Reorganized Latter-day Saints, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So
I never knew that history.
yeah, and it's more liberal, but it comes from the same roots.
So no polygamy?
Yeah, not to be
no
confused with the
polygamy.
polygamous branch.
Right.
So you were part of the Reorganized?
Yeah, and they've changed their name because my mom is still part of it, and they've changed their name to, I can't even think. Sorry, Mom.
Right.
It's been a long time.
It's like it's a more of a generic name, some world church name.
Wow.
But
then you saw
so
the light.
distancing himself, in other words, from the.
At some young age, then you saw the light and then you left the faith.
I did. I started really questioning when I was 15. I had gone to summer camps, and I loved it. The main thing of church that I liked was summer camps, and would get out of the city, from Chicago and go back to the woods and have camping stuff. I loved it. And so I came back from camp, and then we went to a normal Sunday church service, and the priest asked me to take up the collection, or to organize the collection. So, ask a friend to take up the collection. You walk down the aisles with those wood bowls, and they, put their donations in. So I asked someone, and then we did it, and that was that. And I thought, great. And then during the week, my parents got a phone call from the church. And I remember the look on my dad's face. He was really concerned, and they were going to give me what's called a priesthood visit. And
Ooh.
yeah, there's only a couple reasons for that. Like, one is if they're advancing you, to maybe groom you to be in the ministry or something, or you did something terribly wrong, and we didn't know what it was. So then the two guys in black suits or whatever came and took me off to a restaurant, and then they just chastised me, like I had done something wrong to the church and the God, and they were threatening, with maybe we should remove you from the membership and that sort of thing. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know what to say. I was kind of in shock.
What did you do that was so bad?
I had asked a girl to take up the collection with me. From camp, at camp everybody does everything, right? Boys, girls, men, women, we just all share everything. Like, come on, let's help. So this girl had just come from camp, I was like, let's do this. You can take up the collection with me. And we did that, and so I got this visit.
Well,
but then I started
you're going
really
to hell, obviously.
I really started questioning at that point. Like,
Wow.
and I got to thinking that this can't, how can I have done something so bad and I don't feel bad about it? That's what really caught me.
Yeah.
I must, for them, it's like, and I was thinking, why do I not feel bad? And then part of me was thinking, like, I must be really evil because I don't even feel bad about this. Like I'm a, I was imagining like evil people really enjoy what they do, and it's like I don't even feel bad about this. Am I really evil? And it really turned me upside down.
So that got you thinking about religion and how silly it all was. And
it did.
Yeah.
I sort of reasoned at that point like that. They're making these rules up, like where does it say that? Like who made that rule? And then I got to thinking even more so, like, there probably is no one single Christianity. I bet, this is what I was thinking, I bet for every Christian in the world, they have their own version of Christianity, and there's like as many Christianities as there are people. And I was like, if that's the case, then there is no single truth.
How
And-
can
and
they
at
all
that-
be true? How
yes.
could any of them
How
be
can
true?
there be one single truth when nobody can know it ever? And I was like, well, that's it. There is no such thing. And I figured out that, this is a bunch of old white men in the back of the sanctuary making stuff up as they go along.
So
Well,
let's get to-
speaking of old white men, though, the Mormon Church, and maybe you were part of the reorganized church, but the Mormon Church is very racist about American Indians. Was
Oh,
that
yeah.
something that you
They
realized?
love them and hate them.
Yeah. They talk about turning
The skin
This-
is white and delightful, and yeah.
that skin should be white and delightful, and if they be right.
Right,
So
yeah,
that's
but because
pretty-
of the Book of Mormon
Right.
and the Levites and what's the Lamanites or
Yeah,
the
Lamanites
Nephites and
and
the
the
Lamanites,
Nephites,
they
yeah.
were split, and one was a dark race and one wasn't, and then the dark race became bad, and then the sort of like the tribe, 12th tribe of Israel, the lost tribe of Israel, is really in America, and it's the American Indians. So they
And
have
then
this
somehow
love-hate
they're-
relationship, like, oh no, we love Indians, and they're we're incorporated, but at the same point, no, they don't. There's, just like a lot of America really doesn't even think about Native Americans. We're invisible
Yeah,
for the most
especially
part.
Native American atheists, right? Well, but I want to talk about your music, because this isn't a very long show, and you've done so much music, and you've won so many awards, National Endowment for the Arts, and just there's a list of awards that you've won from all of your compositions, and you are something of an expert about American Indian cultures, not just one, because there's so many different cultures. But your music integrates that with a Eurocentric kind of orchestration. Tell us about the South Dakota Olowan, is that what it was called?
Olowan.
Olowan.
Yeah.
That was a piece you wrote?
Yeah, it's called Black Hills Olowan. And what I did is I took a song from the Lakota culture and fused it in with the orchestra music.
Wow.
And I tried to do it in a sophisticated way. Like normally things like this happen and they're just synchronized together, like layered. They'll write some music and then they'll bring in a native flute or drum or whatever, and they just sort of layer it in. But I wanted to actually compose it as a part of the music. So the drum group is actually another section of the orchestra, like the violins and the cellos.
Well, let's watch part of that. Let's watch about a minute of Black Hills Olowan. Wow, so that's beautiful. I wish we could hear the whole thing. And you've also written film scores, a number of film scores. I don't know, I've read about a dozen or 20 film scores you've done, including some perhaps more traditional American Indian thing. You did one about a Iroquois creation myth.
Right.
Which was telling the story of how the universe began.
Yeah. Well, it's basically, people know it as the Turtle Island story, or the woman who fell from the sky. Yeah. And it's a story about a woman coming down, and she doesn't know where to land or whatever, and a turtle gives her, it floats on the water like a bubble, and she lands on it and has a place to stand. Yeah. And then she kind of gives the gift, the turtle, to grow really big. Or in some legends, animals under the water come up and pile mud on top of the turtle's back, and then it grows really big.
Yeah, that's the one I remember from the turtle. Well, let's look at the trailer for that movie. It's called Iroquois
Creation Story.
Okay.
then we have another piece that we can play that's more about nature. What is that?
It's called By Our Nature. And yeah, a filmmaker, Robin Roop in Albuquerque, did this film, and I scored it for orchestra. And it's mostly just nature films, and to give the idea that we should, care for the earth, and it's for everyone. It's not necessarily Native American per se. It's orchestral, but it has Native American motifs and flute and stuff in it. But it's pretty much for everyone.
Well, that's beautiful. It's so peaceful and so enjoyable. Just to write about nature. It must have been a fun project to do. You've won a lot of awards, and I can't even mention all of them. But the National Endowment for the Arts included you as one of the top 25 composers, along with Leonard Bernstein and others. What was that?
Stephen Foster. It was Harry T. Burley.
Yeah.
It was called 3 Centuries of Artistic Genius, and it was choral music.
Wow, and Stephen Foster was a freethinker.
Excellent.
Yeah. And Leonard Bernstein was a non-Christian, so is a non-Christian.
That is a huge honor.
But the other honor I was impressed with was you wrote something for the anniversary of the Kennedy Center. What was that?
Oh yeah, it was the 60th anniversary of the National Symphony and the 25th anniversary of the Kennedy Center, and I wrote a piece for that celebration. They commissioned 25 people for the 25 years, so there are 25 commissions, and they played them that whole year long.
And you also make your own musical instruments.
I do, yeah. I did electronics for a while in my training, and you can make all sorts of new sounds, that don't exist in nature. Turn some knobs and dials and get, and all sorts of sounds, and I like that.
Well, that existed in nature. You just did it.
Yeah, I just did it. But I like the freedom to do that, but I didn't like the lifestyle of electronic music. It was really lonely, and I realized that the only thing I had was like a cup of coffee and a huge bottle of aspirin in the studio, and then the music concerts were like 2 speakers on stage. And no people, ever. You go in and you listen to these 2 speakers playing these electronic music compositions, and I was like, oh boy, this is boring. So I went back to acoustics, but then I started inventing my own sounds and picking apart traditional native instruments to see how they work, and then change things in them, like alter something and come up with a new instrument.
Well, what are some of those instruments?
I've got some birds, chirpers. Like there's this traditional bull roar instrument. It's a flat piece of wood on a string. And it vibrates against the air when you spin it around, like it buzzes, like.
Wow.
But I thought, instead of having a flat piece of wood, why not put a flute on the end? So I figured out a flute mechanism, and you spin it around in the air, and it chirps like birds.
Wow.
So that's one of them. And I've got
Does
instruments.
it have it's a bird chirper?
I
is
just
that
call
the
it
name?
a bird roar because of the bull roar. But then I've got this other instrument. It's from an old button game. Like you have a big button or 2 buttons with a cord through it, and you spin it, and you can pull it this way, like zzz, zzz, and it just spins back and forward. And I replaced that with some kind of a flute mechanism, so it sounds like a dove. It kind of goes.
Wow.
I love that sound.
Yeah.
Mourning doves. Even though they want to shoot them in Wisconsin. Do you work those sounds into your symphonies? And
I do whenever possible.
orchestral?
Yeah.
Wow.
I like adding those sounds, adding Native American flute, and I've got flutes that are made out of quartz crystal as well, a small one, and then I've got, I think, the base quartz crystal flute in existence. I took a tour of the Library of Congress instrument collection, and I did a concert at the Barrett Auditorium in Washington, D.C., and they let me play on their Native American collection. They let me go through the collection to see what works and what doesn't work. So I played wood flutes, old wood flutes. Somebody had made a flute out of a shotgun barrel, and I played that. There was a little eagle bone flute, and I gave a concert on their collection. But the next collection next door was all crystal and glass flutes, and I went in there, and I had my crystal flute. And then I told them about my bass crystal flute, which is, I went back after this and I made a flute that's twice as big as anything in the Library of Congress collection. So
are you the only person who's ever done that, to be able to go through the collection of Native American instruments there and play?
It's really rare. I don't know how often they do that, but
well, they were right to call you a creative genius, because you've certainly accomplished that with all your music. I want to talk about something else. So American Indians, there's this idea, and I get this sometimes because my great-grandfather is a member of the tribe, and I'm still a registered member of the Delaware tribe. Oh, you're an American Indian. Well, you must be in touch with the buffalo spirits and the Mother Earth and the Great Spirit. Like they think I know something special because I'm, you know, do you get that too? And what do you say to people when they kind of stereotype what Indians believe, you know?
Yeah, no, and I do get that a lot. It's like you have to be in touch with like the Creator or the Great Spirit, or you're not really Native. And I think it sort of ties into tribes in a way. A lot of the tribes are based on extended family and kinship ties. You know, think of a tribe and, you know, like I'm literally like a relative, a family relative of like half the reservation in one way or another. Cousins and aunties and uncles and, but, you know, yeah, there's a real suspicion there.
Do they know you're an atheist?
They do. Yeah, I'm not like, I haven't trumpeted it yet, but I've been continually thinking of ways where I should maybe make more of an issue out of it, make more of a presence out of it.
Trumpeting atheism, that's a good line for a musician.
Yeah, trumpet.
Yeah.
That's your next piece, trumpeting.
It should be Oneidas, Oneida piece.
Or fluting atheism.
Oneidas are the people of the stone. The people of the standing stone are the Oneidas.
So with some cultures, like Muslim cultures or maybe black cultures and that, there's this idea that if you don't believe in a God, you're somehow betraying the culture. Aren't American Indians a little more tolerant about that, or do you get that kind of a feel like you're betraying the family by not believing?
Well, it depends. I mean, in Indian life, we have so many different kinds of people. We've got, you know, city Indians, reservation Indians. We've got totally Christian Indians who are running around Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Yeah. And then, you know, then we got like deists almost that are like just believing this like spiritual presence, but it doesn't have a personification to it. Like creator, some people think, oh, that's a person, you know, and then some would be like, maybe it's more like creation, or it's just a nebulous kind of thing that's, you know, guiding the universe, or, you know, like astrology, it's pushing the stars certain ways or whatever.
One thing about, at least the stereotype about Native American religion and culture, is that it is much more honoring of nature. So in that respect, it doesn't seem to have the same, you know, Western religions have a very different orientation.
Well, a top-down sky god kind of thing, who's this alpha male authority, as opposed to a bottom-up nature, you know, which seems to be more broad and more tolerant.
Yeah, there's an easy way to describe that. And again, it goes to like kinship ties. Because in the tribe, there's this system of like reciprocity and exchange. Like the native worlds are not really, they're not top-down. There's no like, in the West, it'd be like good is coming from the sphere of good, right? And evil is a sphere of evil, like the devil maybe do it, or whatever. In native life, there's no real good and evil like that. It's more like health and wellness versus being sick. So if they talk about good, what they're really saying is, are you well? In fact, that's how you say it. Like in Mohican, you say, you know, how are you doing? Is like kuna manta. And really, literally, what it means is, are you well? And you say, if you're like fine, you say noni manta, and that's, yes, I'm fine. So that's the concept of good and evil, is really health and wellness and sickness. And so the ceremonies are really trying to help people get well when they actually do them. And in native life, it's all about kinship ties. So instead of like saying, trying to save the exotic species of dolphin from going extinct, it would be more like for Native people, they have this idea of otherness, of personhood that goes beyond human beings. So they might grant the earth, treat it like earth is a human being, or treat the animals like they're in the same plane as human beings, like this, instead of hierarchy. No dominion over them, but more like a relative. So that's how they see the world. The world is actually a relative. So when they are relating to the nature and the rocks and the trees and everybody, they're thinking, this is my family. Yeah. That's how they're thinking about it.
Well, in a scientific point of perspective, ecosystem, and I mean, science is showing that the other animals feel often as we do. They think, they have emotions.
You're an American Indian who's an open atheist. How many do you think there are? I mean, should we start a group of 3 or what should we?
Yeah, no, I've been searching for those people, and I found a few, that I'm going to mention. But what I was wondering is the same thing. Like, the new studies have come out, like maybe 23 to 25, depending on the survey or whatever, of the nuns right now in American society. But I haven't come across any statistics like that for Native people. Like, I'm wondering, in the Native community, does that 24% hold also for Native people or not? Because
we're going to have to ask Pew to look into that.
Yeah, they do a study or something. But
because I haven't seen that breakdown either.
No, I haven't. I'm really curious about that.
You see African American, Hispanic breakdown.
Well, I've got an uncle that's an atheist, but he, if pressed, he would say, "Oh no, I'm an agnostic because I don't know." But if he really is an atheist.
What about Sherman Alexie? Isn't he sort of a...
Sherman Alexie is an atheist.
Yeah. Okay. So there's what, 5? So there we go.
The writer Louise Erdrich?
Yeah.
Her sister is Hyde Erdrich. She's also a writer. She's an atheist.
Wow. Okay. So
there was a book. I forget the name of the book, and I'm bad at remembering things. But she just wrote the foreword to a book about atheists, like poetic.
Wow.
The poetic response to atheism. And she wrote the foreword.
We had you on a radio show 9 years ago now. So
wow.
And
that's a long time.
And we finally get to meet you in person.
Yes.
Yeah, and you keep cranking along, producing beautiful music. So it's a real pleasure to know, and it's just so refreshing to see your openness about your views. So thank you.
Well, thank you. This is exciting for me too.